When Moore and I came to you guys working together, debt seemed like it was the enemy. And so I was wanting to always get rid of every little bit of debt that I had, no matter how big or how little the interest was. And through working with us, I shifted my perspective on good debt and bad debt and what's actually helping me and what's actually hurting me. And as a result, it was allowed for me to take the money that I would normally put towards all types of debt and actually put it into areas that were going to help us grow. I would say I'm relatively on track to do 50% more in my business than I did last year. And again, that was because I was conscious of how to leverage the debt that I could use to get me to fast forward to some of these different growth goals.
I'd say all the time, most people's financial stress and anxiety, even if they're good, comes from subjectivity, like just not feeling in control and not knowing everything not knowing everything that is going on in their situation. And so just so beautiful. We knew we were good, but just didn't know what we were at. Hello, everyone. I'm super excited for this interview. I've got someone here who has just been one of our favorite clients over his time with us because he just shows up and plays his freaking part. And it's just so awesome when you can work with clients like that, especially with a done with you service. And so before we hop into that, right, I've got my buddy and client, but we're definitely boys. We're so like-minded in so many different ways. He's just such a good human being and a great steward of his money. And it's a big reason why I have him here today. So I've got my client here, Pat Smith. Pat, thank you for being here today, brother. And before we hop in, do you mind just briefly describing who you are and what you do?
Sure. Appreciate you having me on here. My name's Pat Smith. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm originally from Indiana. My girlfriend and I, Maura, moved here back in 2021. I'm a full-time men's high performance coach. So I focus primarily on mental performance and emotional resilience for men in the workplace. And I met Justin through a mutual coach of ours, and the rest is history.
Yes, sir. And he's a high performance coach because he is a high performer, man. And he has just showed up, day in and day out with the work that he's done with us. And so I can only imagine the experience that these clients get. But before we get there, man, like, can you share with us a little bit about how your financial stress has turned into financial peace as a result of going through the Good Steward program?
Sure. And I think the first thing comes to mind is just getting a better picture on where exactly we were at when we first started. For the longest time, it was just knowing that we were good, but not really understanding where we were at.
Yeah.
And that's almost, for lack of a better word, ignorance or just being oblivious to it created a bit of stress because there wasn't actually too much control or too much focus around it. Whereas once we started to put some eyes on it and get to better understand it, it alleviated a lot of pressure. And fortunately for us, we were never in a spot where we were too tight for money, let's say, but it did realize how much more money that we had. And that alone bring a lot of peace to where we were at in our situation.
Dude, that's so good. I wrote down some of that you said because I'm going to use it. You're like, you knew that you were good, but didn't know where you were at. Like,
Mhm.
what a brilliant quote right there, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's so many people out there that are actually, walking around probably that can relate to that. Like, I'm fine, but at the same point, I'm walking around with some stress because I know I can be doing better. And I know that there's some things that obviously I can grow into, right? And I'd say all the time, most people's financial stress and anxiety, even if they're good, comes from subjectivity, like just not feeling in control and not
Yep.
knowing everything not knowing everything that is going on in their situation. And so just so beautiful. We knew we were good, but just didn't know where we were at. And so I love that breakdown. And so would you mind, because you are a mindset coach, I know you're always talking mindset
So
and you have a beautiful mindset and even if you don't fully believe in something at the time, you're always so open-minded to it. And so can you describe how your mindset around debt has changed since working with us?
When Laura and I came to you guys working together, debt seemed like it was the enemy. And so I was wanting to always get rid of every little bit of debt that I had, no matter how big or how little the interest was. And through working with us, I shifted my perspective on essentially good debt and bad debt, and what's actually helping me and what's actually hurting me. And as a result, it was allowed for me to take the money that I would normally put towards all types of debt and actually put it into areas that were going to help us grow. In particular, for us to build up the reserves for us when we put the down payment on the house. And then also, in addition to that, being able to then leverage that for my own business and being okay with getting into quote unquote debt for my business, which is really just getting funding to then elevate it and fast forward it, opposed to me struggling and not being able to complete and upgrade some of the projects that I wanted to and wait till certain revenue came in. So leveraging it versus keeping it was the enemy was the biggest difference for us, especially as it comes into debt. And we had a call yesterday with Sarah, and we talked a little bit through that on how we can continue to leverage it in a way that helps us and using everyone else's money and leveraging it for our own good. And I think that was the biggest difference maker for us. So good. You might mess around and get hired as a coach at JFF at this point. But I think what you said in the beginning, though, like there's worse things than we can do than just trying to pay off all of our debt, right? But the idea is like, what's the best use of our money, particularly for our unique situation and the goals that we have? You guys did a beautiful job of really deciphering that and deciding based off of, I think, those teachings. The other thing is like, yes, you have opened up a lot of leverage for yourself in the business when it comes to leveraging good debt, right? It, there's this stat, I think it's an SBA stat actually, that says, I believe, bear with me on the percentage, it's either 60 or 70% of businesses go out of business because of lack of cash flow. And so what people don't realize is like, a lot of time you don't need your own cash. You could leverage somebody else's, even if you have your own. I've been in many situations where I've had my own cash, but I'm gonna, the best of both worlds, I'm gonna keep it. I want to use somebody else's to invest in making more cash. And so you're at a fairly beginning stages of that with your business, but I'm excited to catch up on a one-on-one after this. I'm curious to hear how that's working, but I'm just proud of you for the mindset shift behind that has opened up the doors for you to have those opportunities. And so I know before, as you were facing, some challenges before you worked, would you mind maybe alluding to some of those challenges? And did you feel like the only way to grow past them was to either make more money or call it the lifestyle you enjoyed? Yeah, the biggest challenge that we found was thinking that in order for us to save to the degree that we wanted, specifically for buying the house and taking some next steps in our life, that we had to fully eliminate the lifestyle, which is wanting to travel, wanting to see family. My family's still back in Indiana. Morris' parents and family is all over the U.S. So we felt that we only could have one or the other, and that felt restrictive to us, and it felt like we weren't willing to give that up. And so I think once we really realized that those two can both go on at the same time, when you actually know where you're at and where you can put money in certain places and save up, that was really helpful for us because for a long time that restrictive feeling caused a little bit of tension at all times. Like if I wanted to go on vacation, then I was always thinking, oh, I'm going on vacation, but now I'm not paying for this, or vice versa. Now I'm paying for this, but now I can't go on vacation. But in reality, we could do both. But it just was a little bit of a mindset shift and getting a little bit more granular on exactly where we were at in the process and where all of our money was going, and to see where we could not be restrictive, but just be more aware of where it was all going. And that felt a lot more calming than trying to budget every single dollar and, like I've done in the past, utilizing rocket money or whatever, which is great, it fits in, but then I don't really understand where it's all going. And so for us, that was like a huge shift from going from that challenge state of feeling like we had to choose one or the other to being able to live out both, while also still hitting a good amount of goals, in my opinion. Music to my ears, dude. You shifted from an or life to an and life. The or life is I'm going to take a vacation or I'm going to spend money. Or if I take a vacation, I can't do this, and vice versa. It's an and life where it's like, yes, you can make financial progress and live your life at the same time. It just takes being on the right systems to show you that you can do that, right? And I love that for you guys. 'Cause I remember when I came to visit in Charlotte and we were walking back from the gym, and you were just like, we just like to travel. Like we've got weddings and we want to be able to go do things and not stress and still feel like we're making financial progress. And so I think we're 7 months out. It was back in September, right? And so a ton of great progress there, dude. I'm so happy to hear that. But I also know when it comes to progress, you've got some serious tangible results. Right? And so I love if you're comfortable with sharing some of your tangible results like debt payoff, money saved, investments made or grown, or whatever you feel comfortable sharing. Yeah, no, for sure. The first thing, first and foremost, was we were able to buy a home here in Charlotte, which was huge. Being able to leverage some of the money that we saved, and also because we were conscious of the way we utilized and paid down our bad debt, and still wasn't too worried on some of the other debts, we had good enough credit to be able to get in at some really good rates. So that was like huge to be able to get in at 5.8%, which was relatively low for where we're at right now, at least this time of our current history. do that. So that was, by the way, that's a great way. Good Friday. I didn't know that detail. Awesome. Yeah. So that was a huge relief for us. And of course, our long-term goal with our current home is to be here for a few years till we start a family, and then keep this as an investment property later down the line. We're in a really good area where Charlotte, like, it's just in the area where Charlotte's getting to start to build out to us. We're not too far from there, so give it another 1 or 2 years. Outside of that, paid off about $15,000 to $16,000 in credit card debt to eliminate a couple of different cards there. I was able to. What else did we do? What'd you save for the down payment? You mind me asking that? Or like, so we saved like 3.5%. So the home was just over 325. So we saved between 10 and 12K, I believe was what it was. And then all the additional costs that came with getting into that, which that in itself was also a bonus to not be buying a home and be housebroke. We were able to come in here and do all the things that we wanted to do. We've got the offices set up. We've got all of our stuff downstairs and the bedroom the way we want it. So that was also a huge win, which was a tangible one because we also saved on top of what we saved in order to make sure that we didn't just get into the house and then say now we have a house and we don't have any money left. So that was huge. Again, paying down about $15,000 in credit card debt. And then the other thing for me was specifically utilizing and getting some funding in for my business in order to leverage that so that I can continue to help some of the systems in my business generate more revenue where I'm at. And as a result, I would say I'm relatively on track to do 50% more in my business than I did last year. And again, that was because I was conscious of how to leverage the debt that I could use to get me to fast forward to some of these different growth goals. Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. So much spoken like a true good steward, dude. And it's crazy. Everyone's situation is a little bit different, right? And what they have access to, income wise, but it's just like, the past 7 months was going to pass either way, right? It was your decision on how you wanted to utilize it, right? And you did something that now your future self is very grateful for, dude, and it's super inspiring just hearing those. And the biggest reason is because you play your part, right? Like, I don't teach all day. We could give you all the resources that we have, right? But like, our services are a done with you service, right? And so with that, can you describe the time commitment required from your end during our collaboration and kind of like what responsibilities that you have and what we take care of? Sure. To be quite honest, the overall time responsibility wasn't all that much. The initial was, I would say, was the most, which was just setting up the budget and setting up the balance sheet to see and put eyes on where we were at, which really to me was the most valuable because if I was not doing that, then I was ignoring it. And if I was ignoring it, I'm actually prolonging it, which obviously we've talked about quite a bit in some of the lessons. So the initial setup was, I would say, the most time intensive. But then after that, it's relatively easy because we would have our weekly lessons, we'd have the weekly Tuesday call, and of course it just depends if you can make those calls. Highly suggest making them. And then outside of that, the daily commitment was just checking my accounts while I'm already on my computer for 8 hours a day. Just take 5 minutes before I even get on, double check where I'm at, double check what came through, what went out, verify that, move on. And then there was a little bit of recalibration that we did on our own every week, which was around Sundays. We'd have like a Sunday meeting just to double check where are you at, where am I at, what are some upcoming things that we need to be conscious of. And so overall, when we put into a time bank, you're thinking maybe less than 1 to 2 hours a week. Like I said, there was an upfront bit, which was the budget, but we made a fun time out of it and just sat down and kind of had a date night and like set ourselves up, knowing that if we do this now in 7 months or 6 months, whatever it is, like we're going to be 10 steps ahead of it versus just saying, oh, well, hopefully it all works out. So that was it. And then, of course, all the calls were very helpful in getting the knowledge from you and then getting the accountability from Sarah for us. Yeah, man, that's so awesome. And yeah, it's the upfront investment, is a little bit of time, but like I tell people, it's like, you put that upfront investment, pull the budget in, a couple of hours of work, right? And then you have literally a beautiful budget that allows for a lot of the things, if not everything, that Pat talked about here today for the rest of your life, for maybe maintenance of 1 to 3 minutes a day. Like Pat said, 5 minutes, and let's just say 5 minutes, and like he said, right, like, and you and I do the same thing, it sounds like. That's once I'm done with my morning and I transition into my work day, it's like, all right, I'm sitting at my computer, I'm about to start working, but I'm just going to update the budget for the 5 minutes and then just hop into it. And it's time that we have 1 to 2 hours a week, right, is nothing, especially for something that is so impactful, something that leaks into every other facet of your life, right? And no matter how busy you are, you have an hour to 2 a week, I promise you that you're probably spending that scrolling. You know what I mean? Or just being able to reallocate it. And so I'm proud of you for that, dude. And so, I know you and I spoke a ton before. We knew each other fairly well and had conversations before you joined, but what surprised you about our services or maybe JFF the most when you joined? One, the ease of getting everything streamlined. Like when we got on board, that was really easy. All the steps were super simple. And then that was one of the things that was, I would say, were the most helpful. And then being able to get the communication back and forth whenever we need it. So that was one thing that was, like, of course, invaluable. And then outside of that, utilizing the platform to go back to whether it was a call recording or whether we wanted to watch through the modules or we needed questions, that we had that as well. And then just some of the basic systems, like we've budgeted before, and if you would have seen our Excel spreadsheet before, it was helpful, but not to the degree that it made it as simple. Before it was like track every single spend line item, which we still do to some degree, but we didn't break it into categories, so it got confusing. So the simplification of just some of the budgets, and they're like, oh, I understand Excel. That makes a lot of sense, and it makes it a lot easier. So the simplification of having those pieces made it that much easier just to follow through on because it wasn't like a bunch of extra tech that we don't already use, that we don't use. It's just something normal, something easy for us to input, and that made it really easy to go through. Yeah, I love that because I think when I first got started, I used to tell people all the time, when I was first learning about money and really diving in, I'm like, yo, finances really isn't that hard, right? It's really not that hard. It's actually fairly simple. You just have to be taught by the right person with the right intentions in mind, with the right systems and strategies. And so, I love that, man. And there is a good degree of balance of accessibility in the program, right? Like we do try to make things very simple and easy, but then you do have like years and years of recordings to go back and watch on your own time, and kind of binge a little bit like Netflix. And I remember when you first joined, it was like your second day in the program. I was in Destin, sitting by the pool on family vacation. You're like, bro, I already watched like 2 or 3 recordings, and I already feel like I got my money's worth. I'm already learning a bunch, and the smile on my face was huge, dude. So I'm proud of you for utilizing even those more passive things. You dove in and you crushed it, and like, dude, you're one of our biggest client success stories. And again, because you really, really play your part and you trust the process. But I know in the beginning, though, it took a little while for us to get you there. You were on the fence up a little bit, and so if someone's on the fence about working with us and they're listening right now, what would you tell them? Well, I just tell them consider where you would be at if you don't do anything about it in 6 months, and where you will be if you actually take charge and have support in your back pocket who's already done this with some time tested systems. Like that alone is going to give you the answer that you need. And I always ask this for my clients myself is what makes you think you're going to get somewhere much greater by yourself in 6 months if you haven't quite got there yourself? And so it's not a bad thing. It's just we all need support in many different ways, myself included, in many ways. And I think that's the biggest thing. If you're there and you're unsure, just know that they're here to help you move forward. They're not here to just to help you grow your money, to learn how to live with the and lifestyle, not just having to choose one or the other. And the actual things that they give you in terms of things that we were taught specifically around, hey, you don't always have to use just one method, right? If I want to save for our home, pay off debt, and create an emergency fund, that is possible. And here are the steps in doing so. Don't let you not knowing or not knowing exactly what it is you want just to deter you from getting the help that potentially could change your life. That's so good, man. Thank you for that. I love the feedback that you even give your clients because it's like, I was saying this a couple of weeks ago on a webinar that I was teaching. I was like, in the nicest way possible, if you could have figured this out by now on your own, you would have, right? Like if your CPA or apps like Rocket Bill or like whatever Rocket Budget, right? If those things actually got you best results, they would have already done so by now, right? And so there's obviously something missing. And when it comes to money, you literally have two choices: keep doing what you're doing, right, or step up and take control in a quality manner. And so I'm just proud of you for doing that, dude. It's something that like you'll never unsee, you'll never forget. And I know your family for generations to come is going to be equipped not with just money that's going to be passed down, but wisdom on how to continue to steward that, attract it, scale it, sustain it, and share it with other people, dude. And so this is an awesome story, man, and I appreciate your willingness to come on and share it. Well, I'll often wrap up, man. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with the viewers? Yeah, I was just gonna share, like, obviously the Good Steward, the name of the program. It's really interesting. A couple things when it comes to that is one of the things that we talked about very early on is not just counting your dollars and making more money and being more financially literate about making all these specific decisions, but it's also being grateful for what you have. I don't remember the exact quote that you posted the other day, but it was around the idea of like, if you can appreciate for what you have, what do you think God or the universe is going to give you more of? Like, why would you think that? And so, using those simple strategies, even when I'm at Trader Joe's or whatever the case is, of like, swipe the card and I'm like, I'm grateful I have the money for this. Like, appreciate it. I know this money's going to someone else's family. Like, I'm grateful that I'm able to do this. And it's so odd that just in doing those subtle things, these opportunities start to really roll in for you. And I know one in particular was some of the funding that we got or assistance that we got from I wouldn't say a random person, but a family member who just out of the blue chimed in to help us, take care of a couple things. And it was just a reminder, like when you are actually a good steward of your own money, like the universe, God, whatever we believe in, recognizes that and is going to gift you that. And it might not happen in the way that you think it may, but it will happen. And just being able to trust that. And so that was definitely a big takeaway. It's not really a tangible thing that you can tie to, but it's just knowing that type of energy you have around money, and that was really helpful as well. Man, that is phenomenal. That's, like I said earlier, spoken like a true good steward, man. And, stewardship is a form of gratitude. And like I've said before, gratitude's an ATM. It really is, because you can't attract a better future if you're not grateful for what you already have. And that's so true when it comes to money. And it's like stewardship in totality is just how you manage something. And so, how can God bless you with more if you're not managing what you already have to the best it per ability? And it's usually the biggest money block that people have, is just not managing what's in front of them to the best of their ability. And dude, I'm so happy you figured that out. And that is just, yeah, it's not tangible, but that's the biggest key of this all, dude. And so, just such a beautiful way to end, man. So, thank you so much for coming on today. Really, absolutely appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, and everyone watching this, I hope you guys enjoyed this interview. This is a true, inspiring client success story. And I hope it inspires you to take action around your money. And so, like we were saying earlier, the time is going to pass either way. It's our decision on how we utilize it. Always do something your future self will thank you for. And I promise you, your future self will always be happy that you chose to manage your money and be a good steward of it. And so, I appreciate y'all listening to this interview, and we'll see you in the next one.